Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everybody. Little sip of coffee this morning. Oh, how is everybody's Thursday? Hello, hello, hello. Good day to you, I say. Hello, how are you today? Glad you are doing all right. Hello, hello. We're Hey, it's the Stephanator. How are you? Good to see you. You're... Oh, even though you tried to break me the other day. So, good morning, John. How are you? I hope you're finding some warm up there. That it's balmy here this morning. It's about 55 in the city, 52, 54, 53, somewhere in there, 55. Like it is, it's a heat wave. So we are enjoying that. Hope it's finding its way up towards you too. Uh, okay, maybe 55 isn't balmy. Whatever. Don't judge. So, morning, Irene. Glad you're here today. Glad you're here. Oh, one of those days there is not enough coffee, friends. Woohoo! Good morning, Linda. Glad you're here. Above freezing for the morning walk for the first time in 3 months. Hey, there you go. Take that. Your low 60s this afternoon. Oh, it'll be drippy, a big drippy mess up there. That'll be glorious. Good morning, Fanny Faye Davis. Linda, so glad you're here. Priscilla, glad you're here today. Windy but warm. Good. That's all right. We'll take that, because we'll probably get it in a few days. So we'll take windy but warm. Good morning, Sherry. I hope you're doing well. Hope that those lovely grandkids of yours are doing awesome. Good morning, Deb Votrin. I'll see you in a little bit. I hope maybe I'll see Linda in a little bit too. I don't know if you're coming by, but I think this is your work day, if I remember right. I can't remember. But anyway, so yeah, no, we picked up another day of missions work here that our partners down at First Baptist Church discovered there was no meal in the city here on Thursdays, so they stepped into the gap, and we've been assisting them. So we're going to be putting together a little bag lunchy lunch here in a few hours. So hopefully we'll see some. Yep, you'll see Cynthia. Oh, very good. I'll see Cynthia. Nice. That's a joy. What? Oh, good. So, morning, Derek. Oh, my boy. God, it's everybody's making it this morning. So glad you're here, and may that alone is beautiful enough to begin our topic today of what we want to talk about, because I want to talk about miracles today. Um, that there's that I think there's probably nothing more kind of weird and divisive than miracles. So we're going to talk about that. But today is the 11th day, 11th day, the middle of March, friends, of the 11th day. We've made it to double digits in March. The 11th day of March, 2021, this Thursday. And we are here for another 11/11. We are getting dangerously close to our year anniversary. We're gonna have I think it's gonna hit next week, and we're gonna have a party. I hope you'll bring your party hats. Bill, so glad you're here to be with us. Glad you're in the journey with us. So glad you're here. So and so we want to talk about miracles today, because I am a believer in a great believer in miracles. I have experienced numbers of them in my life. I have borne witness to even more of them, and I think we're in this place where we've been poisoned by rationality. about what miracles do, and about the presence of miracles. We say, oh, there are no miracles. There's no longer an age of miracles, and the church has made all kinds of silly excuses for this, and I think it's absolute hogwash. Like buffalo biscuits, as Sherman T. Potter would say. Let's as I'm dating myself. That so the 77th. I love this line from the psalmist. This is the 77th chapter, 77th Psalm of David. About the middle way through, he says, "Has God forgotten to be merciful?" I love this question. Has God forgotten to be merciful? Did it just kind of fall off of his day timer? Like, create the universe, keep the planet spinning. Da, 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 da. Oh God, I forgot to be merciful. Oh yeah, no, but it's this great image. Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has He in anger withheld His compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out His hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God. You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. Now, before we get going, I just want to caveat a little bit. There'll be all kinds of people within the church, and like if you go into this and start researching this a little bit at all, you're going to find all kinds of people who are going to say all kinds of things about, well, there are works and signs, and there are gifts of the Spirit, and there are these things and those things, and then there are miracles. And the miracles are those supernatural things that defy the laws of physics and the material world. Blah 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 blah. Don't listen to them. Like honestly, don't listen to them because they're people who are interested in having conversations about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. As far as I'm concerned, to me, miracles are far more personal and far more real. And you call them whatever you want. You can call them signs and wonders. You can call them like that, but I really believe that there's people out there who spend their lives looking for nits to pick. They're like, where can I find my next nit? And so when we talk about miracles, I'm going to talk about it in a wide with a wide swath, and I want to talk about it. And we've talked theologically a lot the past couple of days. Like we talked about freedom, we talked about prayer, and I know miracles can't get much more theological than that, can you? But I do want to just kind of drop us back a little bit because I feel like I've shared with you in our journey over this year some of the miracles of my life. So part of my call story, if any of you remember that story about that John made me this little gitchy here, that of the story of let me get it so it'll focus, of walking by the Sea of Galilee, and the significance of that story in my life. I consider that moment a miracle. Like that was a miracle. And it was a miracle largely because, and if you don't know the story, that's fine because I'm going to get to you. But I just want to say that when I talk about this, I'm not talking about just like the parting of the Red Sea, which is often considered like the biggest miracle. Although the stopping of the sun in Joshua is a pretty good one too. Like there's all kinds of I mean, all of the miracles, all of the healing miracles. And even the miracles that we find later in the New Testament with Peter healing and casting out demons, or that we find all of these that the entire book of Bible is littered with miracles, and I would contend with you, our lives are littered with miracles too. We've just largely been poisoned by rationality in such a way that we kind of no longer see them, or we dismiss them as we do. But that often we are encountered in our walk with miracles, whether they are miracles of healing, whether they are miracles of providence, that God just placing us just in the right place at just the right time, to think about all the things that would have to line up for something to happen, or that simply these messages that come to us. Now again, there are people out there who will get all fired up about, like, well, that's not really a miracle. Like, well, don't you know? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. As far as I'm concerned, that that the fact that there is a God conspiring within our lives and within our past and within our future and with us right now, conspiring for the very best of us, that alone is a miraculous reality in which we live. So the story I want to tell you today comes from this guy, Eric Metaxas, and this is his book called Miracles. I like Metaxas a lot. He gets a bad rap on some stuff from all kinds of people. If you haven't noticed, we live in a critical age, and people can be jerks on social media. If you're just finding that out, I'm sorry. But yeah, but Metaxas is like he's a stalwart, man. But he wrote this book Miracles. But he's really best known, and he actually has a podcast called the Eric Metaxas Show, and on his podcast on Mondays he has Miracle Mondays, and he showcases stories of miracles. That's all he does every Monday, is that there's a new story of a miracle. And I haven't checked today about, like, if there's new ones up, but there's all number of. So if you want to go hear a miraculous story, that's actually a great place to start. But he shares one of his stories of what happens in his life, and I want to recount it to you because I think it's just a beautiful story of how we can not just look for miracles, not just say, oh, that's miraculous, or just that, but I think how we can actually expect miracles in our life. And that's what I hope you'll think about today. Is not that we would look for miracles, or even that we would hope for miracles, but that we would expect them. We would expect them at the moments that we need them. We would expect them in the places that we need them. We would expect them when there is no hope for us, when we feel there is no other place to turn, when we feel that we are truly against the wall, that we can not just hope for them, not just look for them, but we can expect them. So Metaxas he writes a book about William Wilberforce. He wrote this tour de force biography of William Wilberforce, who was the guy that dedicated his life to the abolition of slavery in England. In all of his work, Wilberforce is a true example of somebody who just puts it all on the table and dedicates his life to the abolition of this great evil in our midst. And so Metaxas is drawn into his story and writes a fantastic biography, which is a fantastic biography called Amazing Grace. And if you I encourage you, if you're if you like biographies, it's one of the best ones. So but like people do, he gets cast into. Now people think, after he wrote this book and he has some success at it, that he is going to be a biography writer, which is really not what he expected at all. But he has this kind of notion in the back of his mind that if he were to write a biography again, which was not his expectation, was that he might write a biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was the great theologian and pastor in Germany, who would go on to be a part of the resistance to Hitler and would ultimately die in concentration camps as a result of his being a part of the resistance to Hitler's Nazism in Germany. He's again an incredible story. Bonhoeffer's an incredible guy. And Metaxas is a little tied to this. He thinks this might be his next project because of the fact that he is German. Like his family, it all came from Germany. That they migrated from Germany, and in fact, he remembers the story when he was contemplating this. He remembers the story of going back to East Germany in like the 70s to visit his family. He goes back and he visits his cousins and his wider extended family. They somehow get the visas to go back into East Germany and visit with them in this little town out in the middle of nowhere that had lived through all of this history, and he remembers this great experience of being connected to this wider family that he never really knew that he had. And so this, as he's contemplating kind of what his next project's going to be or what's going to happen, he has a dream. And the dream is that he remembers back to that visit with all of his relatives and all that sort of stuff. At least he thinks he does. But what he recognizes in the dream is, after a little while, is actually this is not the time of that visit. It was actually not the time when he was there. Actually, he sees all the same people. They're all present. His grandparents are there. His aunts and uncles. His cousin is there. He had a cousin that was close in age, but they're all younger by not a lot, but by a distinguishable amount, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that they're younger than they were when he had visited as a child. And he thought it was the most curious thing. But it overcame him. He woke with this overwhelming feeling of wanting to be in the picture, but realizing, his self, like realizing he wasn't there yet. He had not yet visited them, and so he couldn't be in this picture because at the end of his dream, all of his relatives were gathering to be in this one big, kind of picture where they'd all stand up and look like American Gothic in German style, and they would be there in this. And he woke with the image of him standing on the edge of this portrait, wanting so badly to be in it, but understanding that he had not yet arrived there. He hadn't visited yet, and he wasn't in that picture. He woke with this incredible feeling, and so immediately he had to tell somebody about it. He felt compelled to share his story, so he called his mom. And he calls his mom, and his mom's not home. So he's so overwhelmed with, I have to tell this to somebody. He thinks, well, she's probably gone to visit. She's probably gone to visit my aunt. So he calls his aunt. He never calls his aunt. Like, that's not a thing he does. He and his aunt don't talk them. But he calls his aunt, whom his mom was on his way to visit. And she said, and she says, no, she's not here. She's actually gone to visit your brother up in Connecticut, and so she won't be getting off the train for a couple hours or so. And he's just crestfallen. He's like, oh, like he feels so compelled to tell her about this dream of that, of his family and his connection and his draw to be in this picture. And so he tells his aunt, because she's there and no one else is, and so he tells on the phone. He tells this picture. He tells her of this picture, and he tells her that of this gathering, and he tells her of his desire to be a part of it and to be in it. And she listens and is quiet for a moment and says, that's odd. We just received a picture from Germany from the family a few days ago. That exact picture that was taken a few years in the early 70s before you visited in the late 70s. We just received it in the mail. And so they were struck and amazed. This picture that he had dreamed in his head, not only was it part of his head, but it actually existed. And not only did it actually exist, but it had just been sent to his aunt. And not only had it just been sent to his aunt, but because of the fact that the moment that he woke, he called his mother, and his mother wasn't there, so he called his aunt thinking that she would be there. That the timing of the fact that he would even have a conversation with his aunt, whom he never talked to, that with that very moment that he would then discover that picture was there. He said, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. That is amazing. How is that possible? And she too said, it's amazing. And so he would go on for some time telling this story of how amazing this was. And people would say exactly that. They say, oh, that's amazing. And then then the conversation would move on to something else. And then he would tell the story again. People would say, oh, that's amazing. And it would move. So it was this amazing thing, but nobody knew why. It seemed to have no purpose, and this bothered him. That it began to work on him. Now, meanwhile, he began through all of this to really accept the fact that he was going to write another biography, and it was going to be the biography of Bonhoeffer. And part of that was because what he began to realize was that his relatives that were all there, they had lived through those very experiences that he was starting to write about. Now, the thing is that there was this movie coming out called Valkyrie. In this movie, the publisher very much wanted to bring the book out at the same time as the movie to get the bounce. That it's starring Tom Cruise. It was this movie that was going to showcase some of the resistance movement in Germany, and what a perfect time for a book about a theologian. That books about theologians not all that exciting anyway, but that if you're going to have a major movie about that coming out. So Metaxas takes up by his words what was the hardest thing that he's ever done. He dedicated himself to the writing of this book, literally 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, immersing himself so deeply in the material and the journey toward telling this story. That it nearly turned him inside out. It nearly destroyed him in the process of writing this book. It was so demanding and intense to try and make the timeline of the movie that the publishers had initially said they wanted to meet. And through this journey, he realized part of what was happening. That he not only was this dream there, that he wanted to be a part of this picture and this desire that had brought him to the writing of this book, but that in the beginning of the writing of this book, or that in writing this book, he was actually placing himself in this picture. It was the beginning of his journey to do so. But what would happen next began to really flesh out the true power of the miracle. Because what would happen is that Metaxas would dedicate himself to the writing of this book. And if you've seen it, we actually, some of you might have read it. We actually did a study on it last year here, that the power of the story, the power of Bonhoeffer's witness, all of that to this place where he gets the manuscript done just in time for the publisher to be able to turn around and issue the book. And the publisher comes back at him and says, yeah, we're not going to do that. It's going to take at least 6 months. It's going to take at least 6 months to get the book out, and you need to cut it by a third. Because who's going to read 700 pages, 600 pages of a biography about a theologian? Nobody's going to read it. So he nearly because of his dedication to it, he nearly loses his the very publishing contract. They say he has to cut it down. They say they're not going to publish it for another 6 months. This nearly, in Metaxas's own testimony, it nearly breaks him. The level of disappointment, the level of energy, the level of exercise that he had put into the writing of this book had consumed every part of him, physically, mentally, everything. He'd given everything that he had to it. And then he remembered his dream. And then he remembered the miracle that God had given him. In a moment when Metaxas was crying out, "Has God forgotten to be merciful?" I don't know if he said those actual words. That might be a little weird, but that was where he was. God had forgotten to be merciful. Like, he had done all that was asked of him and more. He had done all that was physically possible and more. And yet the publisher just, all of his efforts and all of his labor. And it would be, and so 6 months would go by. And he would cut a few things out of the book, but most of it he demanded that it be published, because there was nothing. In order to tell the story, it needed to be 600 pages. That in order to tell the story, it needed to be the full witness. For him to take his place in that photo, it needed to be the full story. He needed to stand with the fullness of his relatives and his ancestors that had experienced that. And 6 months later, the publisher comes back, only after he prompts them. He says, "Yeah, it's going to be another 6 months before we can get this out, and you still need to cut it again." Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he, in anger, withheld his compassion? Metaxas turns himself inside out. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? How have I not done this? I've done all the things that I was supposed to. I've given myself wholly to this project. And now it's a year. And nothing has moved. His biography of Bonhoeffer would go on to the bestsellers list. It would go on to win multiple awards. It would go on to still, I think, be such an incredible testimony of faith and map of what it means to truly walk one's faith and understanding in the midst of some of the hardest and most difficult times of a life, in true resistance to tyranny, in true resistance to powers that would destroy. Metaxas is sustained by his miracle. That's what the psalmist says. You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the people. We want to look at the world and see the Red Sea parting and say, "See, there's the miracle of God." We want to look at the world and see the sun stand still and say, "See, there's a miracle of God." But God's miracles happens among the people, in your life and in my life, in Metaxas's life and in our lives. And that our ability to not just hope for a miracle, not just look for a miracle, but to expect a miracle, to expect that there is a God behind all things conspiring to sustain you in the great work that he has tapped you with. That is there to encourage you in the moments, that there will be the strength that you need in order to sustain the moments, that there will be the inspiration that you need in order to get to the other side of the struggles that you're in. To expect that. And that to expect that it will not come, on a Tuesday when you're feeling good having a cappuccino, but it will come when you have that moment The true realization of what has happened will come when you have that moment of, has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he angered? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? It's those moments that the miracles come to us. It's those moments that the miraculous finds us. Now you have miracle stories. I know you do. I know you do. I do. I know you have them. If you're honest, now maybe they're signs and wonders, whatever you want to call them, blah, blah, blah. But you've got them. I want to encourage you to tell a story today to somebody. Tell them somebody on this list. Tell a story of your miracle to a miracle of somebody on your list. And maybe you don't. Maybe you are one of these people for whom you just, have no ability to have seen that which is at work in your life. And in some ways, there's blessing in that too. But my hope for you is that you will not look for a miracle, or you'll not hope for a miracle, but that you will expect one in your life. You will expect that those times and those places when you find and you feel as if God has forgotten mercy. Mercy didn't make it onto the list that day when he was going shopping and doling out things to creation, that mercy was somehow left in the shopping cart, that those days you will expect that God will find a way to encourage you, to hold you, to lift up your arms when they are weary, to bring you the strength that you need, to bring you courage in the times of fear. Expect it, friends. Expect it. Because the dreams and the gifts and the messages that God bring us to is to make us a part, just like Metaxas, a part of the great picture of the saints of old, that we might take our place in the great body of Christ, that we might take our place with all the saints that came before us, with all of the family of God, and that we might know God's miracles face to face among us as his people. All right, friends. That's my hope for you today, is that you'll know something of the miraculous, and maybe you'll share a little bit. Maybe you'll tell your story to someone that you trust. I hope we are at the end of another week of 11:11s. I am so glad you've been with us. We will be worshiping on Sunday at 10 o'clock right here on Facebook Live and on right at 282 Rock Street. Hope you will find your way to one of those. And it continues to be a gift and journey, a gift to journey with each one of you. Know that I say prayers for each one of you on this list. I will hold you in my joys and my hopes for you, and my expectations that you will find a miracle in the days that you need them. Peace and grace, friends.